Celebrity Every Day 26. Game of Thrones' Best White Walker episode marked a departure from George R.R. Martin's books, and was better off because of it. The White Walkers were a crucial part of the show from the very beginning, appearing in the pilot's ice-cold open and serving as the overarching threat almost all the way through to Game of Thrones' ending. At that point, of course, they were surprisingly dealt with just halfway through the final season, a controversial decision given how important they were supposed to be. While their fate was divisive, they nonetheless served up some truly iconic moments and were part of a number of Game of Thrones' best episodes. The Army of the Dead marching past Samwell Tarly in the Season 2 finale, the Night King turning a baby into a White Walker, and Hodder holding the door against the Whites are all unforgettable. However, no White Walker sequence or episode matches Hardhome. What happened at Hardhome in the books? Martin doesn't really tell this story in A Song of Ice and Fire. In A Dance with Dragons, Jon Snow begins receiving reports of wildlings, led by a woman named Mother Mole, being trapped at Hardhome. The place itself is said to be cursed in the books, with the settlement that once lay there having been mysteriously destroyed around 600 years ago. Said curse is quite hard to dispute, given what takes place there. There are thousands of free folk gathered there, and Jon is not only aware that they need saving, but that if they aren't rescued, they'll be added to the Army of the Dead's numbers. Thus, he sends orders to a man named Cotter Pike to lead the mission, with 11 ships in total setting sail from Eastwatch by the Sea. Eventually, Pike reaches Hardhome, but sends back word of the hell that awaited them. At Hardhome, with 6 ships. Wild seas. Blackbird lost with all hands, 2 Lyseni ships driven aground on Skane, Talone taking water. Very bad here. Wildlings eating their own dead. Dead things in the woods. Braavosi captains will only take women, children on their ships. Which women call us slavers. Attempt to take Storm Crow defeated, 6 crew dead, many wildlings. 8 ravens left. Dead things in the water. Send help by land, seas racked by storms. From Talone, by hand of Maester Harmune. Cotter Pike had made his angry mark below. "Is it grievous, my lord?" asked Clydas. "Grievous enough. Dead things in the wood. Dead things in the water. 6 ships left, of the 11 that set sail." Jon Snow rolled up the parchment, frowning. "Night falls," he thought, "and now my war begins. Will the winds of winter revisit Hardhome?" It's possible Martin's 6th book could conclude the story. Similar to Game of Thrones, Jon Snow initially planned on heading to Hardhome himself. However, there was a different timeline of events here. Jon received a pink letter, ostensibly from Ramsay Bolton, goading him to Winterfell. Jon decides to ride south, but still plans on sending the men of the Night's Watch to Hardhome. "I summoned you to make plans for the relief of Hardhome," Jon Snow began. "Thousands of the free folk are gathered there, trapped and starving, and we have had reports of dead things in the wood." To his left he saw Marsh and Yarwick. Othel was surrounded by his builders, whilst Bowen had Wick Whittlestick, Left-Hand Lou, and Alf of Runnymud beside him. To his right, Soren Shieldbreaker sat with his arms crossed against his chest. Farther back, Jon saw Gavin the Traitor and Harl the Handsome whispering together. Aegon Oldfather sat amongst his wives, Howd Wanderer alone. Boric leaned against a wall in a dark corner. Mercifully, his boar was nowhere in evidence. "The ships I sent to take off Mother Mole and her people have been racked by storms. We must send what help we can by land or let them die." 2 of Queen Celis' knights had come as well, Jon saw. Ser Narbert and Ser Benathon stood near the door at the foot of the hall. But the rest of the Queen's men were conspicuous in their absence. "I had hoped to lead the ranging myself and bring back as many of the free folk as could survive the journey." A flash of red in the back of the hall caught Jon's eye. Lady Melisandre had arrived. "But now I find I cannot go to Hardhome. The ranging will be led by Tormund Giantsbane, known to you all. I have promised him as many men as he requires. Whether this will happen when the Winds of Winter releases is another matter, however, because Jon Snow is killed shortly afterward. Unlike Jon's death in Game of Thrones Season 5, where the simplified mutiny is a direct response to Hardhome and bringing back the wildlings, at the cost of several brothers' lives, in the book Jon's decision to leave the Wall and ride for Winterfell with an army of wildlings is also a factor in the men of the Night's Watch turning against him. Hardhome may not be something that can be ignored in the books, But it may also have to happen off-page, since there may not be any POV characters going there without Jon's involvement. Martin has previously said no new POV characters will be introduced in The Winds of Winter via Not a Blog, so unless that has changed, it won't be seen firsthand. However, the mutiny also means there's a bigger story at the wall, so what happens to the Wildlings and Night's Watch brothers could take a back seat, a stark contrast to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones elevated hard home into its most terrifying episode. Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 8 is one of the show's very best installments. At the end of it all comes its most shocking, harrowing achievement. The Night King stares down Jon Snow, lifts his arms, and raises the dead. The character does not exist in the books, where the others are more of a supernatural force without a defined leader, as far as we know. But in this moment, it made for one of Game of Thrones' most epic, chilling, and memorable scenes, all thanks to just a few tantalizing teases from the book. Celebrity Every Day 26